I've mentioned before that the Docklands Light Railway reuses a lot of old railway infrastructure, but did you know that there's a place where you can not only see the DLR, but also the railway it replaced? This is the story of the Silvertown Tramway. The Silvertown Tramway sounds like something out of the Wild West, but it was actually a very curious little line serving the riverside industries of Silvertown. And incredibly, there are still several bits of track to be seen in the shadow of the DLR's viaduct. So, a little history. It all began with a company called the Eastern Counties and Thames Junction Railway, who built a branch line to North Woolwich, which opened in 1847. But soon there was another major construction project underway. This is the Royal Victoria Dock, which opened in 1855. The entrance to this dock cut right through the route of the railway, so a swing bridge was built. But obviously this wasn't a great solution with a busy railway and a busy dock, so the branch line was rerouted to the north of the dock. The old line became known as the Woolwich Abandoned Railway. In fact, it was anything but. You see, not long after the original railway was built, a number of industries started to spring up along here. The first was S.W. Silver, a manufacturer of waterproof clothing after whom Silvertown is named. Well, technically the town was named after the station, but the station was named after Silver. Incidentally, whenever you see somewhere in the Docklands named something town, the something will invariably be the name of a local industrialist. Many other industries followed Silver. There was the Tate and Lyle sugar refinery, which opened in 1869. There was the Silvertown flour mill, which later moved to Millennium Mills. There was Thomas Ward's scrapyard, there was a huge chemical works, a jam and marmalade factory, a tar and creosote works, an oil depot, a dynamite factory which was the site of a catastrophic explosion in 1917, a fertilizer works, a plywood factory, another sugar factory, another oil depot, a soap works, a malt works, a dye works, a guano works. Shoot, a fella could have a pretty good weekend in Soho with all that stuff. All of these commodities needed transport, and if there happened to be a railway serving all these factories, whoever owned it would be quids in. As the abandoned line was now on the Victoria Dock Company's land, it was theirs. The dock company itself was taken over by the Port of London Authority in 1909. The dock company realised this could be very profitable and quickly reopened it as an industrial tramway. The actual trains were run by the same mainline company as the North Woolwich branch. Initially this was the Great Eastern Railway, then the London and North Eastern Railway from 1923 and British Railways from 1948. Most of the industries had their own private sidings, often with their own locomotives. Actually, this image from Rail Maps Online shows how many sidings there were. They are marked in green. Being a tramway, the line was subject to some restrictions. Trains were limited to 3 miles per hour. Loose shunting, where wagons were pushed without being coupled to the locomotive, was strictly forbidden. Wagons were picked up and dropped off at Silvertown station on the new line. In later years, this line was worked by Class 8s. For those of you who aren't train nerds like me, the Class 8s were a very well-designed diesel shunting locomotive introduced in 1952, with many still in use. They were slow, but perfect for this kind of work. Incredibly, the line outlasted the other dock railways and even the docks themselves, not closing until 1991. Many of the industries either moved out as the docks ran down or sent their goods by road. Thomas Ward's scrapyard stopped receiving trains in September 1991, depriving the tramway of its last major customer, and British Rail decided to call it a day. This side of the docks hasn't seen as much development as the other side. The DLR uses the alignment of the old track for part of its length. Until fairly recently, there was a lot of the route still visible, and I'll link to a gallery in the description below. To this day there are still plenty of remnants of the old track. But this is still London, and there's nothing developers like more than building on industrial wasteland. It's almost like people don't like eyesores or something. So the Silvertown tunnel looks like it's going to obliterate much of what remains. As for the rest, who knows? Still, having so much abandoned track still visible is pretty good going for the Docklands, especially for a line that's been abandoned twice. Hello all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then I would be most grateful if you would press the like button and consider subscribing for more. Hit the bell icon to be kept up to date, because the YouTube algorithm is a misanthrope. I'd like to give a shout out to Rail Map Online, which I'll link down below, which is not only a fantastic source of information, but a really addictive rabbit hole. I'd also like to give a shout out, as ever, to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You bring the class to my 8. And I'll see you all again very soon. Cheerio.